everyone, it's Kay from the Paper Shed. Hope you're all doing well. Thanks for coming back and joining me today. We're back with the letter C from the ABC April collaboration with Crafted by Toni and Seven Plaza. Now there's lots and lots of people joining us. If you use the hashtag ABC April 2025, this is the calendar for the month of April with all the letters, and the only rule is that you have to post for that. If you want to do N, then you can only post on day 16. So you can do as many or as little as you want to. If you're just joining us, that's all the information will be down below. And if you use that hashtag, you will see everybody that's actually in the collaboration and who's joining in and who's posted videos for everything. So today I'm doing letter C, which is for the 3rd of April. And I've decided to do, because it's aimed a lot at beginners, I thought I would do a journal cover. So I've covered my letter C as in cover. So I'm going to just pop those away and we're going to crack on because it doesn't take too long actually. But what you're going to need is you're just going to need to have 2 pieces. Now you can use, I'm using, board for this. And I think it's 1.5 or 2 mil board in A5 size, which is 5 3/4 by 8 1/4. If you're use recyclable stuff, so if you've got cardboard, just double up on your cardboard and cut out the sizes that you need. It's perfectly okay to do that. It's simple and easy, and you're obviously using your recycling. You need 2 pieces of the 5 3/4 by 8 1/4 cardstock, and then you're going to need a spine. Now my spine, you only need one of these, and my spine is 8 1/4 by 2 inches. I very rarely do anything less than 2 inches, unless it's for just a notebook or something like that. But I would do a notebook in exactly the same manner. So, this sort of option is, can be used for other things as well. So if you're following along, you need 1 piece of 8 1/4 by 2 inches. Now, if you're making yours smaller or larger or however you want to do it, then you just do a 2-inch spine to match the height of your board. And it needs to be exact or exact as possible. Now, I'm going to do a fabric cover today. I have covered in card before, but I just wanted to do a fabric cover. So I've picked this because this is all I've got left of it. So I thought I can just manage to do it with this piece here. Now, just to show you, it is almost 10 inches tall, and it is, I would say, just touching 14 inches wide. Because of the way that I'm going to be doing this, I don't need my board to wrap around one of the sides. So I've got enough to do or to cover these. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'll show you how to do that. I've picked this, which is going to go on my spine. Now, I think the colour's just a little bit off, but I'm going to go with it because I just want to see how this fares up. This is a piece of tea-dyed material that I bought from Temu last week, and I love the effect on it. I think there's just some lovely pieces, and it was fairly cheap. It wasn't expensive, so I thought I would try that. She says, actually, yeah, I don't know now. I'd have to do it that way, wouldn't I? That's fine. I can do it that way. Perfectly fine. We can manage. So I've decided to do that, and I'm going to actually do a lace trim with some brads in down the edge of either side of my journal cover. So I picked out some brads. I use these. It's called Woe Cape 8mm fasteners, paper fasteners, and I got them from Amazon. I can't remember how much because it's been a while ago. But I don't suppose they'd have been too expensive, but I bought them for this particular purpose. Now, you can use any brads. It doesn't have to be these ones. I particularly like these ones because they're like the upholstery pins, if you know what I mean. They're beveled on the top. So let me just show you close up. So they're sort of beveled on the top. They're not flat like, the paper ones that we tend to use in our journals. So that was the reason for those. But you can use flat ones. You get exactly the same effect and it's just as nice. So we're going to get started. I like to put my fabric on with glue stick. And the reason for that is that you don't really get much seepage. And I've ruined so many covers doing fabric covers where the glue has shown through, and I've obviously had to cover that part up because there's not a lot you can do with it once you've glued it down. And once you've had the seepage, it's hard to get rid of. So I found this way and it works perfectly. I've used it several times. It doesn't come apart because of obviously the way that you're going to put it together, and we're going to secure it down anyway. So glue stick is perfectly fine for this job. If you have got fabric and you know that it won't seep, or you just want to take the risk, then you do whatever it is that you do to do your covers. But I found this to be the easiest and most manageable. So first off, we're going to cover our front and back cover. And I'm just going to get a piece and make sure. Now this, because I'm using such a small amount of fabric, you just have to make sure that you've got, a fair amount around here and a fair amount on this side. Now, because of the way that I'm doing my cover, I don't need, because I'm going to wrap around the spine area, so I don't need this one edge, so I can cut it right to there. But if you want to do it as a full cover, then make sure that you've got an inch around here. I don't happen to have that with this particular piece of material, so I'm just going to cut it off at this edge here. But it will also help with bulk. So I'm going to just glue this card up. I'm going to put plenty on there. All the way around the edge. And then I'm going to fill in as much as possible. Okay, just make sure those edges are covered as well on those points. And then I'm just going to turn it over. I want it to be fairly straight, and we'll use this end here. So I'm just going to turn it over and I'm just going to sit that about there. Press it down that way, and then I'm going to turn it over, and I'm really going to push out and push that material onto my board, making sure I've got no creases in the material, and then rub it in. It's going to take a while to dry, but we have the time. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to snip up this edge because I want the other one. What you would tend to do here is you'd have had another inch here so that you could wrap all of your book. But because of the way that I'm actually doing this cover, and I'm not doing a great job, just bear with. So I'm just going to cut that off. You can do this with a ruler and a sharp knife if it works for you. We can trim it afterwards. Okay, and I'm just going to put that to one side and do the other one. So now we've got both pieces on our thing. They're not quite dry, but it doesn't actually matter. So I've got both pieces on. This material, it looks as if I've wet the material and it's run, but it hasn't. It's actually in the print. And just in case you want to know, this is a Kathy Holden material, which is flea market fresh Moda. It's they're lovely pieces actually. I've had quite a few of hers. but I ripped that off the end. But I will use this, and I'll probably use it in my journal somewhere. But I'm probably going to use this one as an ideas book. But yeah, so I'm going to let those dry and I'll be back. So what we're going to do now is I'm just going to, we need to just trim off the corners to these two here. And we just need to leave about 1/8 of an inch on this part here. So I'm just going to come across there. Okay. Same on the bottom here. And I won't throw those pieces away either because they'll come in for a bit of a cluster. Same on this part here. I am using eye and eye coordination if I have any. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the glue stick again. Use whatever glue that suits you though. In this instance, you don't need to use this particular glue. Only because if you do get any seepage on this side, you're going to be covering it up. So if you prefer to use a glue that seeps, then feel free. I'm going to do this one as well, just for quickness. Right to the edges. And then we're going to pull in from this edge and we're just going to flatten that down. Make sure that you've got it right to there. Use your bone folder if you want to. Make sure that there's no kinks in that material because it will show. Then use your bone folder to just bring that piece over this corner. Okay, do the same on this side. So pull it over. Make sure that you've got no kinks in your material at all because it will show. Get your bone folder, run that across there, make sure it's all down and flat, and then bring this into here. And then you can bring this one from the middle up and then pull it right in. And you probably will need a little bit of glue where it overlaps on the fabric. And if you haven't left enough space here, just glue that in, stick a bit of glue on it, and then just push that material in so that when you pull it across, what you don't want is any, there we go. What you don't want is any sort of fray bits on that corner. And then literally you're just going to do that. And I've stuck that to the front of my cover. That's the other good thing about using glue stick is that it does come off like Fabri-Tac. Okay, let's move that out of the way. So top, bring it over, bring that round. If you need glue, just get a bit of glue to do it and bring that round. Make sure all that's flat and there's no bumps in the material. Do the same with this one. I'm just going to reglue that because I've got all of the glue on that other booklet. Same on this one. Bring it over, put it all down, make sure there's no excess material or bumping. Go round the corner, stick a bit of glue in if you want to, round this corner, like so, and then bring that in from the middle. There we go, and go out towards the edge, pushing right down onto here. Now I've got a couple of frayed bits here, so I just want to lift that up and make sure that goes into there, and then that's better. And you just want to glue that edge down. Same with this one, I've got a little bit of a fray going on there, so I'm just going to push that in a little bit before I fold that corner. Now, if you do happen to miss any of those corners, you can use book plates if you want to, which is always nice, you know, a little bit of metal on your, you know. So now we've got 2 covers all covered and done and ready to go. Then what we're going to do is I need to make sure that I've got these up the right way. I think no, that's fine. So now what I need to do is, this is my spine. So I'm going to use the edge of my board now, and I'm going to trim this end. Now normally if you cover it, I didn't have enough material to do that, but if you cover it, you wouldn't need to do this bit. But I need it to be right up against there because of where my spine has to be. Yeah. So what I want now is I want a piece that's going to cover my spine. It's going to cover my spine, wrap around and come around the other side. And we don't want to do the inside, we want to do the outside. So I need a piece. I don't want this edge here, so I'm going to, because it's not a frayed edge, I'm just going to rip it off. Rip's nice. Because I do want it to come over the top. I want it to be quite a neat looking piece. So I'm going to need it to be about here. So a little bit of 1 inch at the top and 1 inch at the bottom. So whatever that is, that's the piece that I need to just make my spine cover. Move that out of the way. And don't worry about any fraying unless you're going to leave your frays, because you can. You don't need to. You don't need to have it neat and tidy. And then what we're going to do is I want it to come onto my. I want it to come onto my backboard and my front cover board by about 1 inch. So I want 1 inch this way and about 1 inch that way. So I'm just going to lay that out. So what you want to do is lay your 2 boards out. Sorry, I'm not in the middle, am I? Lay your 2 boards out like this. You want about 1/8 of an inch on this gap on this side of the spine and 1/8 of an inch gap on this side of the spine. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just lay my material over the top. I want about 1 inch to come over this side and 1 inch to come about over this side. So well, you can do it with a ruler. So I've got about 1 inch there, just over, and then I want about 1 inch on this side. So I want it to be cut at around about here. There, so I'm just going to nick that and then do that. And then this is the piece that I want as my spine. I've got another one there for a piece of, for another one. So this is going to be my spine. Okay. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to stick it to my spine. So I'm going to stick this down exactly the same way as I stuck my covers down. Okay. I'm going to pop that down and see where I've got much more markings on that side. So gauge it in the middle. I want to go up a little bit. There we go. Gauge that in the middle. Okay, turn it over. And then you need to make this one as flat as possible here. Okay. So now what we're ready to do is we're now ready to stick our two pieces. And make sure you get them in the right place. That one's that side, that one's this side. Yes. And we want to stick them next to our spine with that 1/8 of an inch gap either side. Now if you prefer, you can get a piece of this board and put it in between there just to put it up, if that's easier for you. I am literally just going to eyeball it. Okay. And I'm going to use this again purely because I don't want seepage because it's going on the front of my cover. So I'm going to glue all the way down here on my fabric this time though. All the way down to there. Plenty on. And I'm going to pop this on. This is why you want really an edge that you can see, so that you get that gap. So that's why you cut this fabric off here. If you've got it rounded, you don't need to worry about cutting the fabric off straight. I'm going to do the same to the other side and then turn it over and get them and get it all pressed down properly. Okay. Same with this side now. I'm just going to level that up at the bottom here. Push that in. Okay. Just press that down just a little. And I'm going to turn it over, and then I want this to be really pressed in. Okay. And I've got glue on my desk. Hang on just a second. I just want to get it off because I've just cleaned my board. It doesn't help. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to glue down there, and down there. Same on this side. There, there, and there. And I'm just going to bring that over as tightly as possible. What I want to do with that though is I want to glue into there. I want those marks there. So just go in with your bone folder and just push it down as much as you can. Same with the top part here. If you've got any strings that are attached and you don't want them in, just take them out. Bring that over. Stuck to me. Bring that over and do the same. Make sure that's all stuck down nice and firm, and then just make your sticky bits stick into there. It'll just help with your fold. That's what you want. You don't want the material to buckle when you bring it up, so you want to get some glue into there. Make sure that it sticks into those that 1/8 of an inch gap. And there you've got the makings of a nice little cover. Okay, so now we're ready just for the lace and the brads. So what we're going to do is I've picked some laces, and what I'm looking for when I'm picking lace is obviously the colour, and I'm also looking for an edge and the equal bits above at the top and the bottom. So what I mean is I don't want, half one there and a full one on the end of here. So I want it to be as equal as I can possibly get it. It just aesthetically just looks a little bit better. Now I do like that, and the brads could go in, because I've got like 3 hoops here. The brads could go in the middle hoop of each one. I don't think that's quite an inch. Oh, actually, it's not far off. So it would have been an inch all the way down, which would actually have looked quite nice. But I'm not feeling the colour of it. I think it needs to be a little bit creamier. You can also use these crocheted pieces, which always look nice. And they also have lots of holes that you can follow through with your spacings and things like that for your brads to go into. So this one was lovely, and I do really like it. And these flowers would have been the ideal thing to have had a brad through it, these top flowers. So you would have had a brad through the top there of each one of the flowers going down, which is actually lovely. But what put me off is that I wanted a flower at the top and a flower at the bottom, and unfortunately it wasn't enough. I couldn't have got it in without it being sort of ruffled, and I didn't want that, so I'm not taking the risk. Plus, I think the colour of that lace is a little bit too bright, but if that's the look that you're going for, it's fine. So I sort of tried a different colour, and I love this lace. This is beautiful lace, and it's got some nice clean lines there. And again, you just measure your 1 inches for that one. But I do like that. That's really nice. It's subtle, but it's there, which would have been really nice. This one I wanted to try because, it's just a nice wider lace. And what you can do with the wider laces is that you can bring them up towards your spine a bit better. And I love the look of that. Again, it's a lot different, but I do love the look. The other thing about it is that you could use these markings, these hoops at the top for your spacing, so that you know that you've got it right. I have got a hoop at the top and at the bottom, so that would have actually been ideal. But again, I'm not sure. I just don't think it suits this sort of, ledger type. And this one was the last one that I picked, but I'm not 100% sure about it. It has got a flower at the top and the bottom, so it is equal. I've got slightly more leaves this side than this side, but again, I'm not sure that it suits the actual ledger type. So I'm not going to go with that either. So I think what I'm going to go with is this one, which was the one at the beginning. Okay. I just think it's subtle, but you know that it's there. And yeah, I think that's actually quite nice. And it just gives you the effect that I'm actually looking for. So I'm going to go with that one. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go and stick. I'm just going to put some tape down here and down there. Just burnish that in. Okay. And it's just really to secure my lace while I'm working with the brads to go on the top. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and line that up now and do it straight. You don't want to stretch your lace because it'll pull. So you just want it to lay and then get it as straight as you can. Okay, don't worry if it goes over the top. We can trim that in a minute. Okay, so that's what you want to do. I'll I'll do this one on camera and then I'll do the back and then I'll show you the end result. So what I want to do now is work out where to put my brads. Now I want one obviously at the top, but not too far at the top. I want to cut that off because it's throwing me off. So we'll just cut that off there. That's it. It was just throwing me off a little bit where the top was. So I've picked black ones, but I'm not sure if it's too harsh. But it's because of the black in there. So I'm going to go with what I thought because otherwise we'll be here all day. And I want the brads to come in this middle line here of my lace. So I don't want it on the end, I want it in the middle. So I'm just going to get a pokey tool or an awl or whatever it is that you use to make holes. And I want to come in just a little bit because the brad heads are 8mm. You want to be able to come in just a little bit. So I'm missing the first dot and going in. How far am I coming down? I'm coming down at about a quarter of an inch. So I'm just going to come down about a quarter of an inch and then I'm just going to put a hole there. Make it a little bit bigger and then I'm going to put my first brad in. If I can. They're usually pretty easy to go in. There we go. And then I'm just going to splay the back so that that's secure. Okay, I want to turn that because it's in the way. So there we go. Okay. Now then, if I do the same on this end, so I want to get another one. I want to come down about a quarter of an inch, which I'd say is about there. And I'm just going to push a hole through, wiggle it a bit to make it a little bit bigger, and then pop that brad in into there. Okay, splay it out. Don't worry about tightening it. Just want to turn that just a bit before I tighten it, just so that they're not sticking up. So we've got two. Now I like to put them at about an inch in an inch. Oh, that's too short a ruler. Just bear with me. Okay, from the middle to the middle of that is about 7.5. So the middle of 7.5 is 3 3/4. It is. So 3 3/4 is about the middle. So I'm going to do the middle one next, which is about there. So I'm just going to make my hole and do that. And pop a brad in. And just open that up. Just to secure it at the back. Okay. So we've got the middle. Now they don't have to be, as long as they're equal, they don't have to be sort of, every inch or so. Now I'm probably going to get another 2 in there and in there to make it look any better. So we know that that is about 3 3/4 in between. So we want to do 2 more. So if you divide the 3 3/4 into 2, so that's an inch. So we want about an inch and a quarter. We need to do it at 1 1/4 and there's 1 1/4, 2.5. Okay, and you'll do the same down here. Right, so I've worked it out. So what we need to do is the equal amount between there and there is 1 1/4 between each point. So I want to do 1 1/4 from here, which is about, one and a quarter, which is about here. It doesn't have to be spot on because you have to allow for the 8mm of your brad. I didn't make that. I didn't wobble it about. Okay, so I just want to put that brad into there. And then I'm just going to put that's there. We want to come 2.5. So the other mark is about there. Okay. A little bit of maths involved. I'm not very good at math. How's that looking? Yeah, that's looking fine. So just splay those out at the back just to secure them in place. You can do the necessaries afterwards. So now we're going to do the yeah, it's about right. So now we're going to do the same on here. So we're going to use the same measurements for this quarter. So we're going to do 1 1/4, which is here. Where's that? Sorry, 1 1/4, which is here. Okay, and then we're going to do 2.5, aren't we? Which is about there. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, yeah, about there, I would say. Don't worry if you get too many holes in it because you're going to be covering all of the back up, so you won't see them. So I'm just going to open those ones. And we'll do that in a bit. So that's what the end result looks like. So that's my front cover, and then I'm going to do the same of that on the back. So I'm just going to run some tape down, secure my lace, and then put my markings in and my brads in, and then I'll come back and show you the end result. So that's the end result. I've got both pieces of lace on now, and it's all secured down with the brads. That's what your inside cover looks like. Now these won't get in the way. Just make sure that you've pushed them down and they're in, the place where you want them to be. And then what we'll do is we put a cover over this. Now I would use material for that. I just think it's better. You can tape this down. So I would put some double-sided tape on there, and I would just make sure that it's taped down, either washi, you could use masking tape, you could use anything just to cover those up. It's just so that they don't poke through really. And then put a piece of material down this far for your spine, and then you can cover with whatever you want to cover your inside covers with. But that's the end result of that, and there's your cover. So I hope you enjoyed that and found it, useful in some way. If you've got any questions, then just, pop a question down in the comments below, and I will definitely get back to you. So yeah, I quite like that. I'm probably going to use it as an ideas book because I don't particularly like this colour with this. So I probably wouldn't turn it into a proper journal, but yeah, I do like it. I like the look, and this was one that I made earlier. So this was a different one that I made previously that was an ideas book. It became way too chunky, so I've taken it all apart, and it's what gave me the idea to do this cover today. So I do use the method quite a lot, and I do love the result. And this is all done with glue stick, and it's perfect. It doesn't come away. It doesn't come away from the thing. I've actually covered the inside. Now I did this with craft card paper, whatever, and I did actually wrap my lace the last time, but it causes a bump here that I don't like, so that's why I've cut it off this time. But I would actually put material there. I'd put material on the spine just for security, really. And I just covered it in craft. And I like the look of them. So I hope you enjoyed it. Please take part in the ABC hashtag ABC April 2025 and go and watch everybody else's, because there'll be some fantastic makes, I'm sure. So take care, enjoy crafting, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.